What's up, everybody? Can you all hear me? Hello. All right, how's it now? Is it better? I tried lowering the resolution to see if it's any better. Can you guys hear me properly now? And see the video? It seems like it's better. All right, so let's get right to it. I don't know what happened to Gennaro. I just messaged him. He had been having some problems with his chicken, so I don't know if he's busy with that or anything. But I'm gonna start without him, and then he will join us when he gets back. Cool. So, uh, Kylie Roberts. How do you pronounce your name? I imagine it's Kylie. So you're interested in pruning? Nice. We're gonna talk a bit about that. Let me grab the questions that we received. Adam thinks it's kind of hard thinking of questions for module 4. Let me get these questions organized here so that we can easily cover all of them. Meanwhile, guys, if you do want to add some questions in the chat, feel free to do so. Don't forget to smash that like button, as that will help us spread the word out, and the algorithms will help us out. Okay. I'm just grabbing all of the questions here. Also, there was a question about, somebody asked in our Facebook group recently about other species besides eucalyptus, right, that will like shoot up vertically after pruning. And there was a cool discussion there, lots of interesting possibilities of plants. And then I asked, the name of the person is Pura Vida. I asked, I think they're from India. I asked them why they want specifically plants that will shoot upward after pruning and not branch out laterally. And actually, one thing to bear in mind is that when plants branch out laterally after pruning, this is usually just a matter of the strata they belong to. As a general rule, of course there are exceptions, there's always exceptions, but as a general rule, emergent plants, they will tend to just shoot up all of the time. Whereas high, medium, and low strata plants, they might, they will have a tendency to branch laterally after pruning. They might not invest so heavily shooting upwards as an emergent plant would do. And we always want to have service species in different layers, right? We don't only want to have emergent service species. It's always interesting to have high, medium layer service species. So some of them will branch out laterally, and that's perfectly fine. It's not a problem by itself because they will occupy its space. The person wanted. The thing was that they were thinking that they would have to spend less time pruning because as the plant would shoot upward, they wouldn't clog up the lateral spaces. But the fact is that if it's an emergent plant, it's just going to be occupying space. And if it is a low or medium or stratum plant, it should branch out laterally in order to not clog up the emergent layer and to occupy its proper layer. So I thought I'd add some thoughts on that. Hey, Alan. So I'd like to know if you prune with moon cycles or not. Also, in the case that rain is extremely low in a new system and many biomass plants struggle to establish, what do you recommend outside of cacti? I personally follow a simple rule of thumb when dealing with moon cycles, and the best moon for pruning is today's moon. Okay, that's my number one rule of thumb. And the good thing about this rule is it also works for planting anything. So the best moon to plant cassava is today's moon. The best moon to plant bananas is today's moon. The best moon to plant pigeon pea is today's moon. Okay, this is first and foremost just plant. We just want to get. Oh, here's Gennaro. Hey, Gennaro, we're missing you, man. I'm here live with everybody. All right, man. Just call me in Skype. Cool. All right, good news. Gennaro is coming. So yeah, today's moon. Of course, that is not to say there aren't many. There isn't an influence on the moons. Of course, there is. So I personally, whenever I can, whenever it's convenient, and whenever it flows naturally, whenever I can follow the moon cycle in order to prune, I do, but I don't let that stop me from pruning. If pruning needs to be done, and it's not the ideal moon, I will prune nonetheless. Okay, but basically we want to avoid pruning on a full moon or on the new moon. The others should be fine pruning, and then there's also the matter of ascending moon and descending moon, which is also something to consider. And so, like, if you have descending moon and new moon together, that can be very problematic. So you just want to avoid these moments where there might be a very strong negative influence to prevent a strong resprouting. But other than that, plants are so resilient that it's I don't worry much about it. But of course, if you want to organize yourself and have a proper calendar, by all means do it. I just haven't found the organization to do that yet in my plots. So Kylie also asked about biomass plants that in low rainfall areas. There is well, it's a matter of looking for. There's not only cacti. Obviously, cacti, they're just very good because we can actually establish them without any rainfall. There are other plants that can do the same. So, for example, agaves, they're very helpful in dry land. They will also establish themselves without water, without irrigation. Even if it's not raining, if the soil is dry, you can plant agaves, and they are a major important species in these dry lands. Then you've got aloes, aloe vera, and all the other aloes, which also have that characteristic. And then you've got trees that are highly adapted to low rainfall areas. Of course, they will need, when you're dealing with trees and you're planting seeds or seedlings from these trees, you need initial rainfall in order for them to establish. And so what happens is, just a second, guys, I'm going to bring Gennaro in. So what happens is that we want to look for species that are highly drought tolerant, right? So stuff like moringa, neem. There are some senna species which adapt very well to low rainfall areas. Then you've got stuff like carob, which is also amazing, and there are some species of mimosas which do very well. So all of this is. He didn't answer. Just a second, guys. I'm trying to. Okay, now he's coming. Wow. Yo, what's up, man?
How is it?
So we're just talking about species for dry lands. Let me get these our faces. It's very
Sorry
dark.
about that, guys.
It's very dark in your room.
Sorry.
If you can get a bit of a lighter spot, it's better.
Yeah, sure. I can't seem to see everyone here, but
Yeah.
let me get the light working.
So it's all a matter of looking for the proper species that will develop nice and establish themselves with low rainfall. Here in the Brazil drylands, there are many species which we use. Besides the cacti, besides the agaves, we've got two main species of cacti that we use a lot. One is the prickly pear. You've seen me talking a lot about it. Then you've got the mandacaru, which is from the cereus genus, which is a native plant here. It grows very well. So all of these are used. And then many plants will establish themselves with 300, 400 millimeters of rainfall. They will be well established and be able to withstand a drought of 6, 7, 8, 9 months. No problem. Moringa is a classic example. And then here in Brazilian drylands, you've got many other species, some native fruits from the genus Spongias. It's an Anacardiaceae. It grows very well. It's not a service plant. It's a fruit crop, but still you can find species in your region. All right, so you've got Stenocereus. I don't know what that one looks like. I'm gonna do a bit of research, but yeah, that's it. We just need to look for species that will grow with low rain. Many species will establish themselves pretty nicely. Actually,
that's
today,
the challenge.
Actually, tomorrow I'm going to visit. I don't know if you've seen. I made a video about a system that was implemented in Brazilian semi-arid region, and I released a video probably in March or February. And tomorrow I'm going to have the opportunity to visit the plot again. So I'm probably going to be recording a video to show the development of the plant, to show the species that we use, which trees established nice. So that might be cool for you to be in tune. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the challenge to harvest things during the drought. Harvest green things during the drought, and so we've had a lot of experience like with the prickly pears. Because we need for me myself, we need to have animal feed, right? So this is always the challenge. What can I be harvesting to feed them, which I don't have to? What do you do in the drought? And do it in the rain, and you store it for the drought. But that concept, we're breaking it down and really looking for ways of harvesting in the drought. A lot of the prickly pears, right? The pigeon peas, resprouting, and for this, what you wanna how you wanna optimize this, really cutting, you can say, in the initial stage of the drought, so you can get that resprout, looking good for when you really need it deep into the drought. Resprout information deep into the drought, from those newly sprouted shoots. And also you can see when you shade things off how much longer you harvest that in the drought. And simple grasses like brachiaria, I mean, so clear that you get positive results. But if you test it and you see it for yourself, you do it for yourself, and you can see where it's shaded off. The brachiaria goes for another 45 days, sometimes even 60 days. Keeps green for much longer. So, I mean, with the shading, we give it condition for things to live longer in the drought. With pruning at the right time, so you get that resprout. The trees, vigorous plants, they will resprout regardless. Little sennas and other trees will resprout nicely even in the drought, and then you get those fresh green shoots when you most need them. So that's been a challenge for us as well.
Yeah, one thing to consider, Kai, is where many places are dealing with unexpected droughts. So one thing that I've been considering a lot doing, and I'll probably be doing some areas here in my place, is starting off with only the plants that are guaranteed to survive independently of what happens in the weather. So, and then use extreme high densities of that. So instead of trying to establish the trees right off the bat, just go for high densities of prickly pear and agaves and aloes. Just very high density, because they will act as a water storage for your system in the beginning. If you plant prickly pear well with just little rain, just like these 250 millimeters that you said, with agaves and the other cacti that you're using, the aloes, you're gonna have so much water stored inside the plants, and then you can use that organic matter later. And if you shred it, it's just filled with water, and you can use that when establishing the future trees. So you can use that high water content organic matter to feed those new trees that you're trying to establish. So planting these plants is a method of water harvesting. So use that to your favor, and they will grow with very little with very little water, and they will absorb water from the moisture from the atmosphere, and they will store it, and then you can revert it to your system. Let's go ahead and ask and grab some questions from the Facebook group. I'm still writing down all of the questions that you send in the chat, so don't worry about that. They will be addressed as well. But we had some questions. Let's see. I think it was Adam who asked about, and this is a cool topic. Adam asked about tilling or not tilling, advantages of tilling, and other, disadvantages. When should you till? When should you not till? And I think this would be a pretty good topic to discuss. And although this is not thoroughly discussed in our course, we talk about a bit about preparing the soil in the last module, right? So actually, we should leave that topic for next module. Sorry, Adam, that's a topic for Saturday, man. If we have time, we can start discussing it today. But thinking about it, let's hold that one for next Saturday. But he did ask also.
It's very interesting.
For covering the soil, what about using? Because I'm just saying, let's leave it for next for the next session, because it's such an extensive topic that I'd be, Janara and I could be talking about it for an hour, only about that topic. So
I was starting to get excited here.
For covering the soil, what about using non-organic material? Would a plastic tarp or weed mat be better than the soil bare? Obviously, nowhere as good as the organic covering. Definitely not. Plastic will heat up the soil because here's the idea. The weeds come to fix the problem of bare soil. So it's not like we're covering the soil to get rid of weeds. Okay, this is something that we need to get straight. And I recently made a video about, yes, there are some weeds you want to eliminate from your system, but there are some weeds that are good and you want to keep the weeds there. So the video is called Dealing with Weeds, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, right? So these are the three categories of weeds. Do check it out if you haven't. But the thing is, it's not only to prevent weeds, okay, that we're covering the soil. We're covering the soil in order to cycle organic matter. As a side benefit, it will prevent many spontaneous plants, but using plastic to cover the soil, like I mentioned, it will heat up the soil a lot, okay, and it will create a desert anyway, because you're preventing our plants to sprout. And the only reasonable use of the plastic I see is in monocultures. Even then, I don't like it, but then I understand, because you only want that specific plant to be there. So you kill all of the others with plastic. But when we're dealing with a diverse system, you want other plants around. So it's not a matter of eliminating the weeds just for eliminating the weeds. It's more about encouraging our system and working with our system so that the weeds we prefer, the weeds that are easier to manage and that have the most beneficial impact in our system, including the weeds that we plant ourselves, because we plant lots of weeds. Okay, Mexican sunflower is a weed, tomato is a weed, pigeon pea is a weed, castor bean is a weed. Banana could be a weed, considered a weed. It's just,
and then you get all the harvestable crops which we eat, or all the weeds. So in my recent plot here, where we're establishing Napier grass, so say I want to, it's a plot of monoculture Napier grass. So I'm gonna have to weed this. So instead of weeding vegetables, so I don't have to weed it. Like, we're filling in the gaps with the vegetables. So we are planting all kind of weeds: lettuce, aubergine, courgettes, tomatoes. So I plant a weed and multiple harvest, multiple crops. And really, when if you're covering it with plastic, you're not making max use of your space. You've got the irrigation going on, and it was just a great opportunity to fill in all that gap and really maximize on the photon free from the air. You're already using, all that water. You already manured it, so you've got all the energy there. So it really is about promoting, making good use of that space. and then we talk about hormones and growing stimulation, and then we're talking about roots information, where it's sharing, so it's a really no-brainer. And as much as we appreciate that people's knowledge, either we've been advised to use the plastic and things, and we appreciate that a lot of people, they're going organic, and they've got good ideas, but it's just a big shame when you see the plastic going in the ground, because you're not optimizing your space, you're not off of the system, and it's almost like it's all already there. It's just a case of extra seeds or seedlings, a lot of fast growing vegetables that will fill in that spot for you. Yeah, we're in a real mosquito battle here as well.
Yeah,
um,
it's getting crazy. It's getting crazy. The heat
so
came
yeah, and usually
hard.
what do you see when you go down that line with the plastic? It's usually a whole package, and then you start seeing, my friend was using this plastic, and then next thing I saw, he had these kind of plastic, uh, kind of like little pans, bowls, I don't even know, for each tomato, like a little ring of plastic around each tomato. So when you go down this line, there's gonna have lots of new technologies, and the pharmaceuticals, for your plants. And if you go down this plastic line, and I don't know, I mean, because we're following processes
Yeah,
that nature
one
uses.
thing to understand is that it's if you start going down that idea, it will be a self fulfilling prophecy that you're not going to be able to get out of. It will be hard to get out of, right? Because it's a self feeding cycle. Because the weeds are what will allow you to not have weeds in the future. Okay, because you need the soil occupied. If the soil is not occupied, you're never going to win the battle with weeds. So if you're using the plastic bag, you're not going to allow for the process that will get rid of weeds eventually by heavy mulching, heavy organic matter cycling, properly choosing the species that will shade out other species. So you will
And
not
then
be
cause
feeding the cycle that will actually enrich your system. And then you'll get, it's like your system will get addicted to that. It will get dependent on that because it won't have gone through the processes of enriching itself properly.
and if you're not optimizing on the biodiversity, on the opportunity to fill in that spot, and then you assume in yourself, you're admitting that that you're causing the imbalance yourself. So then it's like we're saying, one thing will lead to another. Next thing you know, you need a fancy spray because you've caused the imbalance yourself. You've not permitted abundance.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the next question. I've heard that if you have a high amount of organic matter in the soil, it's practically impossible to compact it. If you had a 6 inches of mulch covering the soil, that sounds like it was Adam asking that question, but repeatedly drove heavy bulldozer machinery over the top, would the soil get compacted? Yeah, if there's somebody talking about 6 inches of mulch and repeatedly bulldozering machinery over it, it's definitely Adam asking the question.
Sounds like
Look, I'm actually going to get my pillow to show you something cool because it's a new pillow. I would use a pillow to talk about this. But yes, I have a pillow here. I just bought it today, so that comes in handy. So, a soil with a high content of organic matter is much like this pillow. Okay, so this is one of those NASA foam things. So a soil with a high organic matter does this, right? It compresses and it goes back. All right, that's the resiliency of organic matter. So if you compress it, it doesn't stay compacted. It goes back, and you can see that when you get like a high, when you get litter from the forest, well decomposed litter from the forest, and you press it, it doesn't become a compacted ball like clay does. It will go back to its original form because it's resilient. But of course, if I keep on doing this over and over again, especially if I put a bulldozer on top of it, it, it will eventually give way. But once you are, we need to be moving tractors on the field. There's no way around it. And they will compact the field regardless of what. Over time, they will compact. The more organic matter you have, the thicker the mulch layer you have, the less they will compact. You can be sure of that. But there will be compacting. Okay? So, but then you have, if you have a thick mulch layer, if you have a well-structured soil, if you've got plant roots colonizing the whole place, plant roots also maintain the structure of the soil and prevent the soil from compacting too much, because they create all this, which is like a structure, it's like a skeleton, which prevents things from joining together. So all of this will allow for machinery to be driven over the plot. But it's important to be intelligent about the machinery paths. Okay, you don't want to be, going all over the field with your bulldozer. Try to make, define paths where the tractor will be going only on top of those paths, so that it doesn't go around compacting everything, but only the same spot over and over, and it won't create major harm in your system if you design your paths intelligently, and if you have a soil well covered with lots of organic matter and well structured by the plant's roots.
Yeah, and if in large scale, organic aid, for you not to compact. That's why as well we don't only want to cover, the vegetable and tree beds. We do want to, cover the corridors in those vegetable systems. You want to make sure your corridors are well covered. So because you're always walking on that, you got your hand trolley, and you got other sacks of manure that you're walking around with, and you're placing it in the corridors. So there's a tendency for you to compact those corridors, and the most amount of mulch we can get on that that it becomes key as well. Usually initial we have a limited amount of mulch, so we concentrate that on the vegetable bed, and then the first initial vegetation that you grow on the spot, and then we're already expanding to the corridors once you've already covered that vegetable bed, that tree row. And then the next time you produce, maybe the second cycle, that first corn that you produced, or the second cycle of biomass crops, then you can start expanding that. So you had it in a vegetable row, in a vegetable bed, but then every time you can expand on that as you produce more organic matter. But be sure to really focus on that for a few reasons. We know that the tips of the roots, maybe you got your small coffee plant and it's in there in that tree bed or in that vegetable bed, and the roots they're contained within that bed. But a year down the line, these roots, they're going to be already, the tip that the tip of the roots is where the plant absorbs the most amount of nutrients. That's where it's sucking the most from. So already those roots are reaching to the edges of the beds and into the corridors. So it's very important for us to watch out for those corridors as well. So mulching will secure that compactation there. And also be careful, because if we do compact that and we don't care for it, and that we kind of create walls where this root is trying to expand, it's trying to reach, it's trying to interact with what's happening in the next vegetable bed or in the next tree bed, but it can't, because you've created like compacted lines in each side of your beds. So these roots, they become like in an island, they're stuck. So it's nice and fluffy there in the bed, but they've created an island now, and it's kind of stuck, going sideways. So the corridors well covered. We're talking about medium to small scale here. Like I've got examples, I can give you some figures. So we went ahead, we planted a 2,000 meter square plot with, you know, tree rows every 5 meters with, in some cases, double vegetable lines, in other cases, triple vegetable lines in between. All right. And okay, so I had a cheap access to some mulching material. It only cost me 300 reais for 15 cubic meter, like a whole big nice truck. So, you know, 15 reais, that's what, sorry, not 15 reais, 15 cubic meters, 300 reais. That's what, we're talking about $60. So it was quite viable for me to buy this material and bring it in. And then, you know, I was like, yeah, bring 10 trucks in. But then, you know, we're putting this into trolleys, into carts. And then if you really want to do a good job and, you know, cover the bed, and then you want to cover the corridor, what you find is that, you know, that's one trolley. You go there and you bring in, that's another trolley. You go there and then there's another trolley. And then you're like looking at your you know, your labor, you're looking at stuff, you're like, hold on, it took you a whole day to do me 2 lines. You know, if you really wanna be, you know, plush with it, it took me a whole day for you to cover me 2 lines. You know, and these people, they're working. They're not you know, they're not lazy or anything. They're working hard. It's just that's the amount of labor it takes. Okay, so okay, I've got all the mulching in the world, right? But if you really wanna do the thing properly, like really make it plush and use all the mulching you would love to have, the labor on that is extremely high. Well, I'm not talking about large scale. I'm not talking about bulldozing. You know, we're talking about other systems. A lot of people are working with small vegetable crops, you know, small vegetable, you know, plots, right? So that is why it's so key to produce on the spot. What is the point of what everything that I'm saying? That is why it's so key for you to produce your organic matter on the spot. The initial organic matter maybe, you know, it pays for you to come and bring that in and cover your beds, right? Because that's their impact, the short-term impact on that is so drastic. I mean, if you don't cover it, you're gonna pay the price. Even if we're working with, say, cover crops, it's not the same. All right, if you have an initial mulching in your vegetable and in your tree beds, it's not the same. So, all right, so we're gonna bring it in and we're gonna cover your beds, and then, you know, if you haven't got the labor to go ahead and do a good job and cover the corridors, that leaves us with one intelligent option: produce the matter on the spot. And this is very important for you to be designing systems that not only, you know, cash crops, vegetable crops, tree crops, whatever, but also crops, service crops that are gonna in turn feed back, mulch on the spot, chop and drop. All right, simple as that. So, you know, and especially for covering corridors, so, you know, compacting corridors. So next year down the line, when, you know, when these trees and these other, you know, 2-3 year cycle plants, you know, when their roots start reaching that corridor, and then you need them to be feeding off that, of the plushness of underneath that corridor, by then you've already, you know, created this material, you've already looked after that corridor, which is very vital.
All right, good answer, man. So let's go to the next question now. How would you determine? Wait, how would you determine what layer a particular tree or plant would be in? I'm not sure if your question is as to how we identify the layer or how we determine, because we don't determine anything, right? The plant comes with that determined by its evolution and its DNA, right? So it's more a matter of identifying, which I imagine is what you're asking. Because the idea of the stratum that a species occupies comes from that plant's original ecosystem. So any plant in its original ecosystem occupies a place in the forest, which could be either an emergent place, right? That the emergent plants are those plants that in their native environment they will put their canopy outside from the forest canopy, right? These are easily identifiable in forests because you can see their heads standing out, right? Okay, that's so. Yeah, I imagine that was the question. So it's genetic. Okay, that plant will look for that place to be there. So it's we need to identify it, right? Because it is intrinsic to the plant from which strata it belongs. So where do you look? Where do you find that out? You find that out through research. There's no compilation of species talking about that. There are very controversial. There's a lot of controversial information, especially in agronomic books, because I'm an agronomist, and we learn throughout the whole course that 99% of the fruit trees prefer full sun, but we know that not to be the case. These trees, they come from the forest. They didn't evolve in full sun. They evolved inside the forest. So conventional information production in agronomy will be talking about full sun for most of the crops. Even cocoa and coffee, people sometimes talk about full sun, which are very traditional shade cultures. So that's not a place you're going to find information. So there are the groups, right? These communities,
Mm-hmm.
interaction with us. Because we're always talking a lot about that, and
Mm-hmm.
participate in the communities. We just started. We're trying to start the Discord community exactly also to have that sort of information. There are other Facebook groups that are good. There's the Centropic Agriculture community. There's our own group, and then it's a matter of talking to people and trying to find out.
Yeah.
Eventually,
I've.
as you gain experience, as you've worked with many species, as you've seen many different ecosystems, you will start understanding the plant's architecture, the plant's behavior, and soon you will start gaining a bit of an intuition to it. It's not intuition in the sense that you grab from spaced information. No, it's just that you acquired knowledge of how each plant behaves and which stratum it belongs. So you compile enough information to a point where you can kind of look at a tree and kind of figure out which strata it belongs to, or at least you have an idea between two stratum. You can, after some experience, you
Mm-hmm.
can be pretty sure. You look at that plant and say, okay, that's definitely medium or high. It's definitely not low. It's definitely not emergent. So it's going to be medium or high. When the plant is growing in a system, it becomes all the more evident. If you see a standalone plant, it's really hard to identify, although you still can because of branch architecture, where the plant invests most of its energy. All of those will be some hints, which will hint to
Yeah.
the stratum of the plant.
There are a few things, I mean, that usually sometimes catch people out, because different biomes, different regions, different climates, they have of say forests of vegetation. So people sometimes get confused, where they've seen small trees, like in a savanna, but like jabuticaba is a very good. We've seen people, jabuticaba, it's a low, it's a low strata plant, because they're looking at it and they're thinking it's a smaller tree, but you have to understand in that climate, in that region, that's considered a medium high plant.
Wait, are you
You
talking
see,
about
so
jabuticaba
sometimes
or acerola?
jabuticaba,
Jabuticaba
you have it in
is the clear shade plant, right? Most of the species. There are many species of jabuticaba. Aren't you talking about
all right.
acerola? Are we talking about the same plant, man?
No, I was being specific, because medium, because I mean I've seen, I mean from what I understand, like a nice medium strata there with that medium shade. Well, acerola. In any case, it was an example, but
Sure, sure,
it's
sure.
a point here. It's a point here where sometimes the height of the plant, it doesn't necessarily dictate, what it is. And maybe we have a quick look at it, and we assume that because it's not so tall, it's going to be a low layer plant. When in a different biome, in a different climate, in a different region, that height could actually be, a taller plant, a medium to high, or even an emergent tree. So, appreciate from where it comes from and what kind of vegetation, colonizes the area, in terms of height of the forests. And also as well, some plants, they have a different growth pace. Sometimes, we have emergent trees from the climax that we're going to see in the future that will establish them. We be patient as well with longer term wood. We know about those longer term woods. We're patient with those because a lot of them are from emergent and high layers, but they need the time to grow. But again, they need the condition. They need plants over them so that they have condition to grow. They're usually more demanding and things like that. So they will be underneath for a long time, and then eventually they'll conquer their spots, and that's where they'll be for hundreds of years.
Yeah, that's perfectly said. This is an important point that, like the stratum to which a plant belongs, refers to the place it occupies when it's mature. Of course, most of the plants will be in the understory of the forest at some point because they will be growing, right? And there are going to be other plants overshading that. So that's a very, very good point to make. All right. Next one. Can you go? No, this is the one that I said we're going to leave for next. Next, so we can take some questions from the chat because they're still. Adam's also asking about the stratum, if rootstocks might adjust the ideal stratum of a plant. Look, rootstocks, they will interfere. They won't change the intrinsic stratum of a plant, but they will change the height of the plant. So this is something to bear in mind, right? So if you get like apple or mango, which are plants which are high stratum, kind of high, between high and medium, and you use dwarf rootstocks, you have to know that your plant is going to grow to like 3 meters tall maximum, right? Like 250, 3 meters tall. But that doesn't make them. That's exactly what Gennaro was saying before, right? The height of the plant doesn't determine its stratum, right? It's an intrinsic DNA thing. So it's not that your plant, oh no, this one will only grow to 2 meters tall, so that means it's going to be a low stratum. No, it is still a high stratum plant. So your high stratum is at 2 meters tall. That means your medium stratum is going to have to be lower than that, and your low stratum even lower. So this is something to bear in mind because it's rootstocks will interfere with the plant's height, but you still have to position it in its proper stratum, right, regardless of its height.
I think Maria Hitter asked earlier about the timing of cutting napier grass and brachiaria.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, can I just talk a little bit about that?
We're coming with the Pitopia question in a bit. It's the next one.
All right. With grasses in general, one thing you want to watch out for is, are you going to let it seed? Maybe you're letting it seed. A harvesting process. If you process begins, because once that process begins, for the energy of the plant and all the to produce these seeds, and then you've really missed out on most of the nutrients. And then if it's for animal feed as well, sometimes it becomes a little bit too sticky. The sticks a little bit too the stems become a little bit dry and stiff. So So you want to be cutting them, you know, at a nice optimum size, obviously, but before the seeding processes begin. Okay, if you can, you know, arrange your cuts so that in the beginning of the drought you can cut, you know, here in my region the drought, say it's from, you know, June to September, you know, so if early June, late May, we do a nice cut of everything, then things will still be green, you know, June, July, maybe late July, early August, I could still have, you know, the last green cut of that. Okay. Certain plants are more vigorous, like Mexican sunflowers. I can cut them in July, August, and I'll still harvest that in September. It's just all year long. That's why we love it so much, you know, Mexican sunflowers. My friend Homolo from Situ Raiz, he rightly said, anyone who talks badly about Margaridon, which is Mexican sunflower, deserves a slap in his mouth. I told him I'm with him on that. I just absolutely love it how we're cutting it. You know, I can cut it now in September and I'm harvesting it in October at the very height of the drought. You know, we're still getting meter high growth within the same 40 days, 30 days, you know, as previous months before that. And with the napier grass, yeah, with the elephant grass, you also the same ways. If you're going for conventional cuttings where you have, you know, the stem with the leaves on top, you know, we're talking about 90. I tend to relate to animal feed because with animal feed we're really looking for the optimum nutritious value. Okay, for that things the animal will actually spend more energy digesting that than he's actually, you know, gaining from that. So we really don't want to let things past the point. So for elephant grass, you know, the napier grass, we say 90, maximum 110 days. Okay, and then we can go into further details. If you want the premium of that elephant grass, you're going to be harvesting that 1 meter tall, all right, because then that's just leaves. You're not letting any of the stem come through, and in the leaves you got, you know, better protein. You got, that's where most of the protein is. You got quality fibers as well. So, you know, meter tall cuts in the is the premium, is the optimum. You don't need to spend that energy on the, you know, on the stem guys that shoot up, chop and drop, you know, chop and drop with an you probably have better results, or as well you optimizing as well where you're growing always quality material. Whether if you've got that long stick, you know, and you layering it down, you're better off having to shred that. But then if you're shredding that, that's labor. And if you're laying down these big elephant grass sticks, you know, it's going to sprout everywhere. So again, we're always looking, not always, but we tend to look for meter tall, you know, 1 meter high elephant grass cuts. Okay. I'm personally now going for some I'm growing some napier grass for cows. So I am going to let it grow a little bit longer because I am going to be making silage. All right. So I am going to produce more volume before I cut because I already going to have to transport this to, you know, to the shredding machine and all of that. So I'd rather transport more volume in one go, you know, have like 1 or 2 cuts a year and do a great deal of you know, of a mass in one go. My maximum here, I'll leave it for maximum 90 days for the napier grass. And a little bit about grass cuttings there.
Cool. Cool beans. Um, that's great. I have nothing to add, man. You're the grass expert here. um, so let's go to the next question. Is actually somebody had asked in the group about Phytophthora problems, right? I'm not going to address Phytophthora specifically. I will address um, diseases in general, right? You mentioned that there were studies that shown that oaks weren't dying when they grew with other species, but they were dying when they grew alone. So that's a perfect example of what happens. We have to understand this: diseases and pests, they don't happen at random. Okay, our society has the wrong notion that we just happen to come across a disease and we get diseased. That's a completely crazy idea. It's not like, oh, I got in contact with virus X or bacteria X and I automatically get that disease. And that's the same thing for plants. Okay, you get a disease when there is room in your body for that particular bacteria or virus or whatever to proliferate, and that usually denotes an unhealthy body, okay, or a less than ideal health. Plants are the same thing. If they're healthy, they can get contact with whatever the disease it is, and they will thrive well without having any problems with that particular pathogen. Most, I couldn't say most, but many plants pathogens, they have secondary occupations. It's not their job to kill plants. Their job is to decompose organic matter. Okay, that's the job of most of the bacteria and fungi that exist, right? Out of all the population of the microorganisms in the soil, all of the species, only 2% are capable of causing disease in plants. And they will attack plants if the plant shows signs of decaying organic matter. It's as if the plant's tissues are already decaying. And then the organism comes to do its job, because its job is to attack organic matter that's dying, that is in decomposition. So when plants are healthy, when they've got enough water, when they've got enough nutrients, when they've got the perfect environment they like to grow in, and then it comes all the ideas of having companion plantings, of having a healthy ecosystem, because it's not only a matter of having a healthy plant. We want a healthy ecosystem, and that depends on the plants, the community of plants, and not a plant itself, or only the amount of nutrients that's in the soil. It's a whole range of factors that will create the perfect environment that nourishes the plant with everything that it needs. There are some people who work with with measuring the Brix level of plants sap. The Brix level, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically sugar content. It's actually soluble solids content of anything. So you can use it to. There's this tool. It's called a refractometer. I don't know if it's the same in English. And you can measure the content of the Brix level of the plant. And it is claimed that once plants reach a certain Brix level, that means that they are synthesizing lots of matter. They are doing photosynthesis. So they've got these compounds running through their sap. So that means they are able to produce a lot of it. So once they reach a Brix of over 12, between 12 and 14, they are immune to most pests and diseases, because it is not interesting for the bacteria and fungi and pests to attack that plant, because they cannot digest that plant's sap. So that plant is not food for them. Just think about this. I love this example. If you see a bowl of rotten rice, you can smell it from far away, and you can see from far away that that's not food for you. you cannot digest that, right? This is pretty simple. Anybody who sees a bowl of rotten rice, it will smell it from far away and say, okay, this is not edible. Insects, bacteria, microorganisms, they have the same power. They know what's digestible for them and what is not digestible for them. A healthy plant is not digestible. An unhealthy plant is digestible. So it's as simple as that. So once the plant is healthy, it is not digestible. So it's not interesting for the insect to attack it. It is common and natural, especially in hotter regions, to have fungi and bacteria as part of the cycle, because they will attack, for example, older leaves, because as leaves get older, plants will eventually die, the leaves, and then plants will drain some of the nutrients from those leaves in order to redistribute it to the rest of the plant. And those leaves will immediately be attacked by bacteria and fungi because they don't have the compounds anymore to protect it. Okay, the plants, they will take care of surviving first. Once they have enough to survive and to produce new cells, they will worry about their defense from insects and pests. So that's why they need to be very, very well nourished so that they can grow healthy and be able to produce all of these compounds that will protect them. Okay, so but it's all a matter of trying to create perfect soil health and ecosystem instead of trying to fight off pests and diseases, because it is a lost battle. Okay, there is no winning against any of these bacteria and fungi that cause harm to the plant. We can beat some of them. We can beat this specific fungi. We can beat this specific bacteria, but more will come up because it's just they've been around for longer than everybody. They're a lot more well adapted than we are. We're not going to win the war, so there is no winning the war. We need to join them. How do you join them? Feed them. Feed your microorganisms. I don't care. I make no distinction between microorganisms. If they cause diseases in plants or if not, I don't care. I feed them all by throwing organic matter in the soil, by having living plants in the field, so that they're doing photosynthesis and they're pumping carbon into the soil in order to feed these microbes. I'm feeding them because they are the answer. They fix the problems. They create abundance, and they will create the balance in the system. So that's it. Now, on a side note, on just like a final thing, yes, when you're starting off your system it's not balanced, it's not in equilibrium. You might have problems with specific pests, with specific diseases. In some cases, you could use some organic. We talked about this last Q&A. You know, sometimes it might be necessary to deal with some ants, so you might use some biopesticide or something. You can do that in order to make sure that you get a specific harvest with specific crops, so that you don't lose it, so that you don't, so that your field doesn't get so damaged. So yes, we do use that every now and then, but it's got to be very sporadic, and you need to be using the processes of enrichment in order to make sure that as time goes by, your system reaches a further level of balance, so that pests cease to exist in your system. It's not that the animals don't exist. It's not that the bacteria don't exist. It's that they no longer behave as pests, because there's no purpose in behaving as pests.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So I mean, so what is it you want to do? You want to give the immunity system to your plants, so they you want to give health to your plants. So how do you fight off disease? Make sure your plants are healthy. Make sure the companion is up to scratch. You know, we take part. You know, we're always in Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups, and people are like, I got mulch around it. You know, in our case down here, plant a couple of cassavas, a couple of corn, a papaya. You know, give it a little bit of biodiversity around your plant. You know, make sure it's got a little bit of shade. You know, I'm being here specific with coffee. We get a lot of people, you know, my coffee plant, how do I do it? You just need to make it healthy. And then once it's healthy, its immunity system is going to be pumping. And it's amazing, isn't it, Felipe? It's
Yeah,
really,
plants
and you know,
depend. Actually, all life on the planet depends on microorganisms. There's no way around it. You know, we're
prune it down.
They rule the show. Okay, they own this planet. The microorganisms own the planet. You know, we must pay them tribute. So, you know, give them organic matter.
We're actually and so
Yeah,
let's
something like that.
respect that.
Speaking of that, Gareth sent a question. Can we use food scraps from the kitchen directly on the soil, or should you compost first? Definitely directly in the soil. You want to feed the microorganisms in the soil, not in the compost pile. This is a very common thread, and many people, they get kind of boggled when we say do not make compost, because it's known that fresh food scraps, fresh organic matter will ferment, heat up on the soil, whatever. Yes, they can. If you make a heap of food scrap like 1 feet tall, it will burn, and it will not be good, and it will smell bad. But small doses, and if you do thin layers of food scraps and thick layers of dry organic matter on top of this thin layer of food scraps, they will decompose nicely. They will not heat up. Plants' roots will travel to that place in order to feed directly off that decaying matter. It will be a feast for microorganisms. It will be just brilliant. And I actually, I plan on doing a video about that soon, because my kitchen scraps, that's how I treat them. You know, just every day I just take out. I have a small, like, rubbish bin. I just take it out, throw it in the garden, cover it, and that's that. You know, and then I turn it into tomatoes. I'm gonna make a video about that to show exactly how to do, and because you need to be careful with a few things. Like I said, if you pile up too much of it, it will attract animals you don't want to attract, and it will smell bad, and it will not decompose properly. But the point is that you want the process of decomposition to happen on the field, not on the compost pile, because the best part of it is the process of decomposition, not the compost. The best part is composting, not the compost. So the composting should happen on the field, not in the compost pile.
Yeah, people are having a healthy diet. I mean, as well. Obviously, if you've got all that, you know, industrial mayonnaise and all those industrialized sauces, it may alter a little bit of that.
Well, as long as
you know, the fresh,
even if it's industrialized, as long as it's, you know, plant and animal based, as long as there aren't chemicals in it.
Yeah.
So the best thing is to give it to the microorganisms to fix. But of course, if you start having, if you start having chemicals, you know, food with whatever chemicals and antibiotics or anything that could damage the microorganisms population, then it's bad. But they will eat whatever you give them, man. Even mayonnaise, I'd give them mayonnaise and whatever.
And you end up getting the most awesome little, you know, just outside my kitchen window, where I wasn't even having to go outside. I just, you know, the kitchen window is right, throwing it out the window. You know, I get a lot of trouble from my wife and my mom. Why are you throwing things out the window? But, you know, years have gone by, and I got the most awesome little forest just outside my kitchen window there. Everything's just sprouted beautifully. Lots of biodiversity, a lot of stratum. Lots of information there. And I got the most awesome little forest from my kitchen scraps. I was just throwing out the window. It's nice and easy there, and just piling up there. It's a really healthy part of our land.
Yeah.
Today I got the pigs, so it's a different process now. That was years ago, and now I've got the legacy from that. Today I've got the pigs. It's a different process as well. Pigs is a very good solution as well for this. You converting, if you have you can have your healthy meat down the line, where you're feeding them quality food. You know, so that's a very interesting process as well, where you feeding it to the pigs or animal feed, and you converting that into whatever eggs or meat or milk and things like that as well.
Yeah, that's it. It's also a cool process. So you do want to compost, like we mentioned it in the last video. You do want to compost when you get access to a huge amount of organic matter at once, and then you are unable to spread it out evenly and thinly on your field before it rotting. So in that case, you store it. Then look, composting is a compost pile is a way to store fresh organic matter. Okay, think of it. It's a way to store it. It's not a way to make it better. It's not better than putting it directly on the field. It's a way to store it for later use. I think that's the most clear way to say it. Kylie, I'm still not sure if that's how you pronounce your name. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Where do you live? Can you say it out loud in the chat exactly where you live, if you're still there? Because I want to answer your question about, you said, curious as to why you don't like Cimaruba Paraíba. I never said I don't like it. I love that plant. It's very common around here. Oh wait, are you talking about Cimaruba or Schizolobium Paraíba? It might be Schizolobium Paraíba. Anyway, I love both of them. So yeah, they're great plants. Why do you think we don't like them? If you're talking about Schizolobium, it is like one of the fastest growing plants in the world. So it's just great. It doesn't produce so much organic matter after pruning, right? It's not that prolific resprouter, but it grows really fast and it resprouts nicely. So yeah, it's a great plant. I think Kylie's not there anymore because there's no answer. All right. So basically, I think we're done with the questions. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask right now before we wrap this up. And of course, Saturday's coming up. We're gonna have the last Q&A session. At least for now, it's not gonna be the last in the world. It's gonna be the last for now. And we're gonna start. I already have Adam's question here about the advantages and disadvantages of tilling. So we're gonna definitely talk about that. And let us remind you all that we want to. One of the things that we'd like to do, one of the projects of the Agroforestry Academy for next year, is to record the Agroforestry Academy course 2.0. So we want to go further down some of these questions. And all of this interaction is really important also for us to understand what are the main questions so that we can address them in this future course. So one thing that we'll probably do in a future course is to have more in-depth lessons about soil preparation and fertilizing and all that sort of stuff. And
irrigation.
In order to do that, we need your support. So remember, you can always support us in Patreon, right? That's the way we found so that you can support our work. We want to continue making this content free, and we want to produce this new course with more material, and it will be free. The idea is to maintain it free in YouTube for everybody to watch wherever they are. Not everybody is able to contribute financially. So for those of you who can, there's a Patreon. We have our Patreon community. So there's lots of stuff going on there. We're always posting some extra material. we just created the Discord group, so this will be a group for the patrons to discuss specific topics. So it's just a cool community, and it's a way for you to support our work so that we can continue producing videos, getting more equipment, and so that we can increase the qualities of the video. Today I bought a new camera so that we can get better shots from the videos and all that. So we're always trying to improve the quality of the videos, and we want to do that Agroforestry course 2.0 next year. That's going to be good.
Yeah, and we also appeal to you guys, because the algorithms on how they work, if you guys dig the videos, don't forget to click the like button. A lot of you guys follow the channel, you hear regular, but sometimes you haven't subscribed. If you subscribe to the channel, that helps us, reach to more people, because YouTube exposes our material, and it's just ways when more people reach the channel, reach the content, reach the information. So that's a simple, quick way you can be helping us out here, helping the movement, the whole process, and really, really helping mankind. Everything, everything. That's how they behave. So, do like the and things like that.
Yeah, that's one of the best ways for you to support is just share out the content and share it with your friends. Subscribe and click the like button on the videos. That's already a big help. All right, guys, I think we're out of questions, so I think we can wrap this up. We've gone for an hour and 20 already, so that's pretty good. Gennaro's sound was spotty this stream. That's bad. We're sorry for that.
Sorry about that, guys.
I don't know if that's the internet connection.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, out here sometimes it goes by, and it's just how it is. We're out in the sticks. We're out in the valley here, and we're hoping for better technology to arrive here sometime soon.
But all right, so I'll catch you all on Saturday at 7 p.m. GMT -3. Don't forget to send in more questions to the Facebook group, and we will address them in next Saturday. All right, guys, thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for the feedback, guys.
Best regards. Have a great end of week, and we'll catch you all in the next Q&A. Cheers.
Thanks very much.